Start recording. Cool. So this is the admin version of it. Let me show you student version of Classroom. So this is how your UI looks like, and weekly basis you will see on the first page, landing page, you will see all the updates, all the links, all the posting that's being added. You'll see it here. In here where it says upcoming, this is where you'll see your assignments and stuff. But if you have multiple assignments, you should really go to do right here. You go to do, and here you should have your assignments. Because this one is already done, nothing is assigned, so we're not seeing it here. Here it says missing because there was an assignment for this student who hasn't submit their work, so that's why it's saying missing. If you had done it, it would have been here, basically. So the way you submit your homework is already past due date. Yeah, this one already past due date. So there is a submit button here. When you're working on it, you should really submit it, and we will receive it once you're done working on it. And we'll receive it here, and then we'll review it, and we'll do the same. So here we have 24 people turned in. I was able to review 14 of them last night. 16 are still pending. I'll get to them today. And when if you turn in late, it would tell us it's late turn in, late submission. So if I just open any one of them, let me see if it allows me to grade it. Yeah, I could still grade it and return it, and it will receive it. So that's the whole idea behind it. But the thing is, let's say if your homework is not complete or something is missing, we could always comment it and return it back to you without grading you. Once we give you a good grade and submit it, the work is pretty much done. But if we request further information from you, we'll be sending it back to you, requesting you to return it. So so it's like a multiple workflow, right? In one submission, if it's good enough, it's done. We'll just give you a grade and return it to you, and it should be done. But if you need to rework it, you really have to. We'll return it to you with the proper comments, and you have to redo your work or edit it and resubmit. So it's like that type of thing. Okay, other thing what I noticed, guys, when you're submitting something, when you're writing a document, and you should always start with your name and date. That's very, very important. Most of you didn't do that. Some of you, very few people did that. Some of you did, most of you guys did not write your name. Like looking at this, how would you know who submitted it? Here, obviously this Google Classroom, it says the name and everything, but you should really have your name and date on it. That's one thing. Other thing is presentation. I have seen a lot of people did very good job in presenting the work, but some of you just put the words, without any proper documentation, proper formatting, because the reason you're writing it, the reason you are submitting it for people to review it, and when you are involving another person, you should really have your documentation presentable. So please focus on that. Just submitting homework is not good. All right, that's that. Any questions on the classroom or the invitation? Today we will be talking about Agile mostly. Before we start talking about Agile, guys, I just want to let you know Agile is a huge topic and often it's confusing even for me. So we have videos from last week or last batch. I would really encourage you guys to watch those videos. I'll give you access to those. It would be really nice. Agile is something you have to repeat over and over again to understand. Agile is something not everybody understands. Even there are people working in the industry, there are people working with me, with us in projects, they still don't have proper understanding of Agile. So you can understand, like, the complexity of it. All right, someone has to mute. Guys, if you're not talking, please mute yourself. All right, so we talked about Sdlc last week. I hope everybody understands Sdlc. Moving on. Based on the homework, I believe most of you have an understanding Sdlc. So as we're talking about Sdlc has different type of models that people follow in the industry. These are the different type of models like Waterfall, V model, Agile, and Fish, and all of that. Let's not worry about anything other than first three. Waterfall is a model. So within that Sdlc, right, we have seen the Sdlc model, like we work in different phases, starting from requirement to deployment phases. So these are the standard way of working, but within that Sdlc, there are different models, different workflow people follow to build a software product. And Agile is the most popular one out there. Everybody is trying to work in this model. And this is what we will learn today. I mean, we'll learn first two as well, but we'll not spend too much time on this two. Third one is the most important one. And the rest, they're not even relevant. So we'll not worry about the rest. So starting with waterfall model, waterfall is very similar to Sdlc because, when this whole thing started, it was only one way. It was just waterfall, and waterfall and Sdlc is very similar. If you look at those phases, let me know if you're able to see my screen. So waterfall is a sequential development methodology where everything happens in a sequence, and it goes in one flow. If you look at the phases, we have requirement phase, planning phase, design phase, development phase, testing phase, UAT, and production phase. Same thing as Sdlc, very, very similar, exactly same. Only difference is in waterfall, the workflow it goes in a sequence, one after another. So you start with the requirement, so everybody understands the requirement, everybody goes through requirement understanding. Once that phase is done, then moves on to planning. We go to planning phase, then goes to design phase, then goes to development phase, testing phase, UAT phase, and production phase. So that's how Sdlc works. Same way we learn, waterfall. Same way we learn Sdlc. No difference. And you guys already have understanding of Sdlc. So I'm going to move on from this model, unless you guys have any questions. You can always stop me. Second one is the V model. V model usually used in the government projects. I don't even know who uses it. I've been in this industry for a long time. I never came across a company that is using V model, but just for your understanding, we'll spend the next couple of minutes on V model. So V model is a framework. V stands for verification and validation. So if you look at that diagram, V model, it's a V-shaped model. If you look at the diagram is showing requirement design, system design, architecture, model design, coding. Then you have acceptance test, system test, integration test, unit test. So it's really in one side verification is happening and the other side validation is happening side by side. Really not much to talk about this because you'll never use this one. I can almost guarantee, but just understand, look into this one. I'll share this document with you guys. I'll share a folder, actually. I'll share a folder. This drive, you'll get access to this folder, and this folder has most of the documentation. So I'll share this with you guys so you can have access to it. You can look into it. So really not much to talk about in vModel. Except verification validation. So verification validation, I think, I don't know if we talked about it a little bit. Verification confirms system its technical specification, where validation confirms a product is ready or not. So difference between verification and validation, just go through this document. I'll hand it over to you guys. You can look into it. What are the differences between verification and validation? It's important to understand that, and it's pretty straightforward. Just look into it. Verification is usually prior stage of validation. Validation happens once verification is done. But you can look into it, look through it, read through it, understand what is the difference. Yeah, if you look at last 2 points, like verification would be verifying something is working. Validation is the confirmation of that. Basically, the report of verification. All right, moving into Agile. What is Agile? This is the big topic of the day, and I'll try to go slow and make it easy. We may or may not cover the entirety of Agile. I don't think it's possible, but I think we'll spend next couple of days in Agile. I'll try to go nice and slow, but I would again request all of you to watch. I think we have 3 videos on Agile from last batch. If you can watch that, it would be very, very helpful. So what is Agile? Agile methodology is iterative development methodology where we make a product part by part. We make a part, we test it, we release it, and we come back and build the next part, test it, release it, and so on. That's pretty much Agile. Guys, the other thing is like that documentation you'll see here. This documentation will give you, is written in very plain language. It will give you basic ideas of what everything is, but I always will work with you to create your own documentations, because you also have to create your own documentation, and that's the way it has to be. Like every batch we have people creating their own documentation. If you look at this, these are individual work from each batch. So you have to create your own documentations. So that would give you practice, that would make you a pro. And when you do a documentation, it should look like something like this. This one was done by Sinan. This is the date, and he was part of the last batch. I'm sure he's here as well. So when you're creating a document, make sure it is presentable. It has everything that you need to cover for that specific topic. Don't just write a document randomly and forward it. Because when you go to work, you'll be working with so many other people, and your work should be presentable. Okay, so going back to Agile. Okay, so let me open the Agile diagram so we can talk about Agile more in details. So so this is the diagram of Agile. So as I was saying before, look at the diagram of Agile is very, very different than Waterfall or Sdlc. It's very, very different. So in Agile, we work in iteration. So we have iteration -1, iteration 0, then construction iteration, then we have release iteration, and then production. So if you look at each of the iteration, we do different things in each iteration. I will zoom in so you can see. So iteration -1, if we look at iteration -1, what happens in iteration -1? In iteration -1, we are identifying potential project, prioritizing potential project, developing initial vision. So in iteration -1, it's purely management work. You will not be part of it. I will not be part of it. It's purely management work. And very few people are working there. Iteration 0. So iteration -1, that's where the product selection happens. Iteration 0, initiate the project. So project initiation happens there. Active stakeholder, when it comes to Agile, they have their own terminology, own way of talking, own language. So we need to learn that. There are so many keywords are being used in Agile environments. So we really need to understand that and learn that. And here, for example, stakeholder represent the client, the end user. So whenever you hear the word stakeholder, that is only used in Agile, not in Waterfall or Sdlc. So your assumption should be a stakeholder is the client, basically. And in Agile, we have client working with you together. Whereas in Waterfall, they don't exist within that product or the project. We will compare them side by side. Let's just go through this quickly. So in iteration 0, active stakeholders participation, that's where pretty much client sits with you. Obtaining funding. So this is again not yours, it's in the hand of management. Start building the team, same thing. We're still not there. Still managers are actively working to build a team. Initial requirements envisioning happening here. So basically you have stakeholders there, you have business and managers there finalizing those requirements and the funding and the team. Architecture is also being defined here, and the setting up environment is taking place in iteration 0. So usually, actually, I was part of iteration 0 not last month, couple of months back. So here, like, you know, we meet as a team, especially when I say we're talking about managers and stakeholders. That's where we have hours long meeting. We had, I think, 6 hours long meeting in a couple of days. So this is where, like, you know, as a team, as managers and the clients, we are deciding all of this, you know, from funding, from budgeting each team, from building the team, finalizing initial requirements, initial version of requirements, timeline, setting up the environment, finalizing architecture, initial architecture, things in those nature happens there. So a bunch of meetings basically. So After iteration 0, we're moving into construction iteration. That's where everybody works together as a team. And when I say everybody works together as a team, they literally work side by side. Before remote work and Agile, everybody, it was required to be sitting in the same room next to each other, including clients, business analysts, developers, QA, Scrum Master. Everybody needs to be there within the same room. Otherwise, we would not call it Agile. So then COVID comes, but we still meet in a couple of times, actually. We still meet a couple of times as an Agile team, first thing in the morning. And obviously there will be something else scheduled, talk about current work status, issues, things in those nature. So we'll learn that. We'll do it actually physically in our class. We'll do a project where we'll be working as an Agile team and we'll be practicing it. So I'll be understanding it clearly. Here, the construction iteration is the main iteration. That's where all the work gets done. So if you look at the construction iteration, and if you look at the first line, right, the stakeholder participation is there almost throughout, almost in each iteration. So the construction iteration, the clients are there, they're participating, they're working with you side by side. They'll be there to clarify any corrections, confusion you may have. So they'll be there. It could be one person that representing that group. It could be multiple person. Usually it's one. Yeah. So documentation happens there in construction iteration. All kind of documentation. QA has their documentation. BA has their documentation. Dev has their documentation. Management have their own documentation. All type of documentation happens there. Team collaboration happens there. Like I mentioned, everybody works together within this iteration. Test-driven design. Well, TDD, test-driven design. Basically, that's another model, and we're not going to talk about it right now. But understanding Agile testing is very, very important. It's a testing focus model. You as a QA, you have so much power on Agile, obviously in Waterfall too, but especially in Agile, you are the most powerful person. You have the ability to turn down the entire product or push it to production. So you have the entire team depends on you basically as a QA. So your responsibility is very, very important there. And obviously test-driven design, then also testing happens there. And then once testing is done, internally software gets deployed. Internally software gets deployed within this construction iteration. Once the work is done, just like what you saw in Sdlc and Waterfall, obviously you go through the requirement, you go through planning, you go through designing, you go through development and testing and UAT. Everything is within this construction iteration. Once everything is well, before UAT, when it says internally deploy software, it's kind of like UAT. It's kind of like UAT. You deploy the software, you test it, and then you confirm to the client we have tested it. Then they test it as well. Things in those nature. So once it passed through construction iteration gate, then it goes to release iteration. In release iteration, active stakeholder participation, obviously their final system testing happens there, UAT testing happens there, documentation gets finalized there, user training happens there, deploy software into production happens there. So you pretty much deploy the software within that release iteration. And in production iteration, software gets used by the client and obviously end users. And if it's publicly open, obviously public, anyone can access it. And the system support always happens when the system is live. So this is pretty much agile workflow. Any questions?
Adil bhai.
Yeah.
The difference between confirmatory testing and UAT testing.
So UAT is something is done by end user, right? And you're doing confirmatory testing, similar as regression testing. This is what you are doing, and this is what
The
UAT clients are doing.
Okay.
This is more than regression testing.
So confirmatory testing is from our side. It's more of our side's work, and UAT testing is the client or the user side, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, let's put this side by side now. So let's compare these two guys. So in Sdlc or Waterfall, like, look at this. So we have this one right here is kind of gated. Gated meaning, like, you see this border here, client has no access to the product. Are you guys able to see my screen? Both.
Yes.
Yes, split screen. Okay, cool. So look at this, right? In Waterfall or Sdlc, like, you're working within this box. Client does not have access. Client comes right here, right? They come here and give you the requirement, and then they come back and verify here. So within this time frame, but in the meantime, you're going through planning, you're going through design, you're going through development, you're going through testing. Now this right here, it could take 6 months, it could take 3 months, I don't know, whatever the amount of time. And within that time, like, you know, right now everything is so fast, right? A lot of things changes. And let's say they give you requirement here, and they go home a week from now and 2 weeks from now, they're like, oh, I have a new idea now, I want to make changes. And they come to you, they call you, hey, you know, I know we have finalized the requirement, and now I have better things that I want to add. Can I make the changes? You're going to say no. In Waterfall, you're going to say no, it's already finalized, we already planned it, team is already working on it, we can't do, sorry, you know. You have to start creating new requirement, and once we release this one, then we can start working on your idea again. But then they have to wait a couple of more months, and by then maybe that idea is old, then it's something new. And again, like, you know, they're in a situation where they want to do something fast and nice, but they can't. So this was the way of work back in the days, but nowadays is no longer relevant, and you can see why. Versus, so this is the disadvantage of Waterfall now. Versus here, client is sitting with you right here in every phase. Now they're working with you, and if they have an idea, they could tell you, hey, I know we talked about it, now can we change this? And if it's reasonable, we change it within that workflow. Now, major difference between Waterfall and Agile. Agile makes a software part by part. Like I said before, we break down an application and build it part by part. Just to give you an example, like let's say we're working on Gmail or something, right? Now Gmail is huge, right? If we go to Gmail, like right here, if you're working in Waterfall, you'll start everything from login screen to every single folder, every single functionality, everything that you see. You'll start planning as a whole. You'll start developing the entire thing, designing the entire thing, testing the entire thing as a whole. Versus if you're working in Agile, you'll just say, okay, how can I simplify my work? How can I break it down, my work part by part? So you'll just take like a smallest part. You'll say, I just want to build logo first and present it to the client and see how they like it. So you'll find a way to break down your work. Then you'll say, okay, maybe next time I want to build inbox, then this one, and then this one. So the idea is you'll just build a small part of that application and push it to the client. Say, hey, I built this, you play with this, I'm going and building next part, and so on. And this time frame is usually 1 to 2 weeks, depending on how much work you can do within that 2 weeks time frame. You will take a couple of items and then work on it and give it to the client. Now, what the advantage for client is they are able to make decision within 2 weeks. Wherever you build last 2 weeks, today I can review it and say, okay, this is good, and this one I need you to make changes. So you go back and start changing right away. Versus Waterfall, you're stuck for 3, 4, 5, 6 months. I have seen projects for 8, 9, 10 months. And once they're done with this project does not even make sense. So everybody in the industry shifting away from Waterfall, everybody's going toward Agile. Agile makes sense. Agile works good. Advantage of Agile, like I mentioned, you work with client side by side. Client gives you ideas. Client gives you their view, their need, and their approval. At the end of it, of course, their approval. Now, the disadvantage of Agile is frequent changes of requirement, and it happens a lot, right? You start working on something, then you get notified the requirement changed. But the good thing is, like, if you're working within the time frame and the changes can be done within that time frame, you do it. And then like I said, 2 weeks is the time frame, maximum 2 weeks. It doesn't go more than 2 weeks. If it's more than 2 weeks, that is not really pure Agile. You could do 3 weeks, but I haven't heard anyone doing 3 weeks time frame in Agile. So you just select the workload that you can complete within the 2 weeks, and you go on with this. So like I was saying, advantage and disadvantage. Advantage, you have the client sitting next to you, you're getting the ideas and everything. Another huge advantage, you're sitting with everybody within your team. You're sitting with everybody. Obviously, for the remote environment, you are on the call with everybody. And always clarifying, you have daily calls. Before you start your day, you have daily call. This is where, as a team, everybody provides updates saying what they have done yesterday, what they're going to do today, what are the issues they're facing, things in those nature. Everybody, regardless of your position, everybody provides update, including the client. If the clients are there, they would talk about, okay, this is what we have done yesterday, and these are the plan. Right. So everybody is crystal clear in Agile versus Waterfall. Sometimes I don't even know where rest of your team, where they're sitting. Are they in this country or next country or something else? And I'm talking about back in the days, Zoom, obviously Zoom wasn't there. A couple of years ago, maybe. So the concept was not very clear who's working on what and what not. But now, obviously, you have the meetings and everything. It's very easy to get your clarity and then question answers and things in those nature. So these are the advantage and disadvantage of Agile and Waterfall. Someone had their hand raised. Right?
Yeah, so obviously there's more advantages to Agile than disadvantages, but in your experience, is there like any other disadvantages other than the constantly changing requirements?
In Agile?
Yes.
So Agile was a newly created model, and when they created Agile, they made sure that everybody adapts to Agile. And I mean, if you really have to mention one disadvantage, it would be requirement changes. But the other one is which you cannot say is a disadvantage. If you do, and they will not give you a job. Agile is very fast paced. You really have to work. It's a fast paced environment. You're always chasing. You're always catching up. So that's something everybody faces, but you cannot really say it as a disadvantage because that's what it's for. So no one likes to have it slow, right? In Waterfall, I have seen people sitting without any work for months, and no one would question you because it's just a model. It's just a model. That's just the way it is. But in Agile, like your sprint is 2 weeks only. Your work, the time frame that you have committed to is only 2 weeks. Within that 2 weeks, you have to do your test planning, your test cases creation, your test execution, your bug reporting, your every other documentation has to be done. So you really don't have time to waste, and that's why Agile is very, very good, I would say, in software development. And if you get a job, you'll see every single company, they're trying to adapt Agile. Not that everyone can, because you really need to have a good team to know and understand and do everything in Agile properly. All right, any other questions?
Yes, if you don't mind, can you explain the construction iteration one more time, please?
Yeah. So in construction iteration, this is where actual work happens. Iteration -1 and iteration 0, this is where managements are involved. That's where clients are involved. That's where decisions are made. That's where teams are being built. Once teams are built and environment is set up, that's when we move to construction iteration. And right before construction iteration starts, that's when they will start hiring people. That's when you'll start receiving calls. The recruiter will call you and say, "Hey, I have a project. Are you interested?" So obviously they'll set up interviews with you and everything, and you get hired to construction iteration directly. You don't have access to iteration -1 or 0 unless if you're a manager. So you get hired to construction iteration, and that's where actual work happens. If you look at Sdlc, construction iteration is similar to system testing phase. No, sorry. Combination of planning, design, development, and system testing. These four combine, these four phases. It is squeezed into this construction iteration. So that's where, final requirement gathering happening. That's where designing happening. That's where development happening. That's where testing is happening. Everything happens in construction iteration. Actual work happens in construction iteration. Does this make sense, brother?
Yes.
But in work-wise, you'll be following Agile model, and we'll learn more about Agile model as we move forward to this class. All right, so other questions, guys? Anyone else? So if you look at this document, you'll have, yes, Ali.
So, brother, I have a question about Agile system. Is Agile like SDLC process?
Part of SDLC process. SDLC is the entire process of building a software product. Within that SDLC, you have different model that different industry follows, different company follows. Some are following Waterfall, some are following Agile, some are following V model. So Agile happens to be the most popular one in SDLC. Does it make sense?
Yes, brother. So I have another question about model, Agile model, V model, or Waterfall model. Our companies are follow the three of method or one method?
Just one. If your company, whoever you get hired for, they will only follow one model, not three. So the reason you're understanding all three, because your company may follow a different one, and obviously you need to have an idea. So 90%, if not more, companies are following Agile, either Agile or hybrid. So hybrid would be something in between Agile and Waterfall, and the reason they follow hybrid because Agile is very, very strict, and it's hard. If you don't have a really good team, it's very, very hard. If you don't have a really good project manager or managers, it's hard to follow Agile, pure Agile. So often you'll see people, they follow hybrid model and they don't purely follow Agile. That might be the case, but if you can learn Agile, you're good to go. You'll be fine with any and every environment. You'll be just fine. Any other questions? So this document will explain everything that we talked about. Agile methodology, the process of Agile, different iteration, what happens in each iteration. And let's talk about, I don't mean to confuse you. So obviously Agile is a model within that Sdlc. Everybody understands that, and now within that Agile there is another model called Scrum. So within that Agile there are different models as well, different framework people uses, but Scrum is the most popular one that everybody uses. Just like Agile is popular one in Sdlc, Scrum is the most popular framework in Agile. So what is Scrum? Scrum is a workflow. It's a process that the entire team follows within that construction iteration is Scrum. So what I mean by that, if you look at this right here, construction iteration, there's a team working. There's a team, entire team working. Within that, like I said, there are business analysts, there are dev, there are QA, there are project, there are client. So everybody, they're working there next to each other. So they just shouldn't work in their own ways, own term. They should work in a framework, in a model, and that model calls Scrum. And what it is basically working together as a team in Agile format, nothing more than that. So if you look at this, it's a model, it's a workflow that follows within that construction iteration is Scrum. Within that Scrum, there are product backlog. So guys, these are some technical words, just hear it. You'll understand it later. We'll have entire day or two explaining each one of them. So understand that within that Scrum, there are product backlogs, sprint backlog, sprint planning meetings, daily stand-up meetings, sprint retro meeting, sprint review meetings, Scrum team, burn down chart, Scrum masters, etc. So we'll explain each one of them thoroughly, probably next week. So this is the Scrum model we're talking about, right? Within the Agile. Now let's talk about team. Within that Agile, we have to have a team, and the team is also structured. You cannot just have random number of people in team. In Agile, they try to limit, in Scrum, Agile Scrum, they try to limit number of people. Usually, like I said, we build small part of an application. We build an application part by part. So we should not really have, too many people working in one team. And Agile is very, very organized. So they like to have everything organized. So even the team. So if ideally a team should be, the entire Scrum team should be up to 7 to 9 people. If it's more than that, is not really pure Agile Scrum team. So usually a team has a Scrum Master, a business analyst, 2 to 3 developers, maximum 2 QA, 1 or 2 QA, and a product owner. We'll talk about what is Scrum Master. Obviously, PA, developers, quality assurance testers, product owner is the stakeholder, product owner, stakeholder or the client. And Scrum Master is the project manager, basically. So that's the team structure. The ratio, has to be, the developer has to be more than QA, and developers more than everybody, basically. So usually in a team, 3 to 4 developers, 1 to 2 QA, and everything else is just 1. Yeah. So the Scrum workflow is, first we create the team, then we select the duration of, I really don't want to get into this terminologies right now. So basically what we're saying, the duration of the work, duration of the time frame, and then user stories. So user stories are the requirements, basically. I'm not going to get into this now. It's going to get complicated. Okay, what else? So read through the principles of the Agile. Read through it. I'll give you access to this document. Okay, and then here, if you can see the Scrum workflow. Scrum workflow is here. Most of the thing will not make sense to you if you're new, but we will break it down to you next week. This is the workflow. By the time you come back to the class next week, if you can watch those videos, that would be very, very good. And this week I will not give you any homework. Only homework you'll have is to watch those videos. That's all. That's all you need. You can do that. You'll let me see, where's the Agile videos? Sdlc. Agile part 1, Agile part 2, Scrum part 2. So we have 3 videos. I'll give you access to these 3 videos. Please watch them. That would be great. Okay, with that, I'll stop here. Actually, before I stop, let me just show you the materials, Agile materials. So we'll go over this document that I was just presenting, right? Still a lot to cover. And then after that, we'll move on to this document. And this has a lot of information. We'll talk about everything here. We'll talk about everything here, and then we'll move on to product backlog, then user story sizing, then sprint, and then burn down chart. What else here? Estimation. Let's talk about estimation. And I think that's it. So yeah, as you can see, Agile is a big topic, and we'll cover it in the next couple of days. All right, guys, questions, concerns?
Kadibhai,
Assalamualaikum, Kadibhai.
Walaikum salam.
Can I ask a question? I'm sorry if I cut anyone off. I was going through the documents that we have available on the Google Classroom, I think, under documents. It says IT solution, I think it's version 1. We don't have anything about Scrum under that, I mean, inside that note or the documents that you had given us. So
Yeah.
can we get those like, you know, notes for Scrum, or we can't? Because we don't have
Yeah, so-
anything for Scrum on that
Right.
document.
Right now, because we are not there yet. So that document is just the main document that we are going over, basically. But different topic has different folders, so I just have to share different folders with you guys, so you'll see it. So if you look at you're talking about this document, right? Under this document, IT solution 1, right? So this is
Yes.
what this is just the overall first document, which is what I'm presenting here, right? And this does not have Agile. It's just have this is it. Right? Because Agile has its own folder, and if you go to the Google Drive, so Agile has its own folder, and under this you have all the Agile related documents. Under here you have Sdlc related documents, and so on. So like I was saying, like I'll give you guys access to this this one. Okay, so here you go. I'll just post it to the group.
Thank you, Kadibhai.
You're welcome. So you have access to it.
I was asking this because before the class starts, I usually go through them so that I have an idea what we are going to talk about it. So
Yeah.
that's why I was asking on that.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's that's very, very good. Actually, so now everybody should have access to start reviewing it, and then next week is going to be next couple of weeks is going to be huge if you understand Agile. That's where you, if you're very strong in Agile, they would give you a job. Actually, everybody needs Agile. Okay, someone else had a question, I guess.
Kadira,
Yeah.
are you going to assign that, remember last batch we had, you sent us like a short 10-minute video on the intro to Scrum? That was like pretty helpful for like any beginners or really anyone, just like getting
Yeah.
exposed to the key terms.
Yeah, as part of this week homework, we'll have 4 videos. One of them is 10-minute long videos only, and it's really, really helpful. And then obviously we have the others. I'll send you guys, I'll link you guys to all of these today itself, so you can start. Thank you. Right, it's this very, very helpful video. Yeah. What else?